We are recording. Salute, family. Tank Commander Zulu back at you once again with my man, the one and only Drew Danger.
Hey guys,
Real
thanks for having me
man
back on.
movement. That's right. Real man movement supporting real woman wisdom. And today, family, we have a huge topic. A huge topic today of discussion that we want to talk to the public about. We want to make sure we're making the right kind of noise around this particular situation that it deserves. And that is the recent Kamala Harris visit to the nation of Africa. And it seemed like she had pretty much a message of, in particular to many of the African nations, that the LGBTQ agenda is directly associated with human rights, and that the current laws concerning homosexuality in that particular country, not country, but in that nation, it's very strong and stringent laws against it. But they're not like, it's not like they're out there hunting homosexuals down or anything like that. But what Kamala Harris said, the United States Vice President, is attaching the LGBTQ agenda directly to human rights. And she served it in a package to the African nations that the LGBTQ agenda is part of Americans' human rights package. So meaning that if you want to continue to receive funding and funds and donations from the United States, African nations, not just a few, but all throughout Africa, if they want to continue to receive that aid, that they pretty much want Africa to denounce its LGBTQ policies. And they are strongly against it. Not to the point to where it's just like America used to be with Don't Ask, Don't Tell. They're pretty much in that particular area with it. But they're not in agreement with forcing that particular culture or trying to allow that culture to invade their original African culture. They're calling it more Western culture and more European culture. And so one of the things that the Ugandan president said, and I have to say I'm proud of him as a president, he told her straight up that they're not going to go for that. And if you do take the aid away, go ahead and take it. We don't need it. And I found that to be an admirable stance. And here's why. Because as a leader of a nation, he made a decision based on what he knows about his people and his culture and the culture of that nation. Although they have received aid in the past from Western civilization, and that's America, and also Europe. Although America and Europe allow, or they moved forward with the LGBTQ agenda, well, many other nations didn't. And many other nations, like Africa in particular, is standing firm. And Uganda's president, man, pretty much said, I don't care what you do. We're not gonna deal with that. We're not dealing with it. And you can take your aid and do something with it. Pretty much. So Drew, when I heard him, I said, let me send this to my man, Drew. Because Drew is like the Black Columbo. Y'all remember Columbo, man? Because one thing about Columbo was, man, you just when you thought you got away with it, Columbo be at your house. When you think you got away with it.
I got the spirit of Peter Falk, huh?
Yeah, man. So Drew, tell me about it, man. When I sent it to Drew Danger, Drew got in it, man. We talked for about 3 hours about this situation, but we want to share it with you guys. So go ahead, Drew. Lay it
out. Here's the thing, guys. I'm proud and I applaud Uganda. I applaud them very much because this, as the people said in the first video you sent me that lived in the States, They were saying, like I've told you many times, how I said use California as a template of what you don't want to be in your home state. See how they do it, this crazy stuff, and then see if you like that. If you don't like it, then fight to not let it come to your states, like marijuana, different things, the dispensaries, all that stuff, and see how it works. And then if it doesn't go so good for us and it's made our state a disaster, you may not want to welcome it. The same thing with Uganda. It was that people were making it known that they are not happy in the US because the US has allowed these trans different things and the LGBTQ to have all this power and ability, and you got to do this, and if you say this, you'll lose your job and all that stuff like that. People are really coming out and going, this is insane. So they applauded Uganda for making a stand, not just against that, but making a stand for this is our country, this is our money, we got it under control, and we don't want any of your stuff here because it's going to corrupt our children, it's going to hurt our children, it's going to hurt our families or families in general. We don't want anything. It's against God. I couldn't believe they said that too. It's against God. The Bible says no, we're not having it. And that's where we stand, where the Bible is sitting on this and our families and children are sitting on this. We don't want any of that.
Right.
We'll make it out. Don't worry about us. If you want to snatch our aid or snatch our wigs or snatch whatever, you can have that. You in England, you guys can do that. All you want to do, because we're not going to take it.
Right.
You ever hear the Twisted? Well, you're not into rock music, but we're not going to take it. The song.
Well, I know that one.
Okay. That's what's awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, Twisted Sister with "We're Not Gonna Take It," and that's what I heard. Yeah, I heard that in my head when I was listening to all those people. I was like, they're really not going to take it.
Right.
They're not going to take it.
Taking it. And I, along the way, and I'm going to let you continue. Also, not only Uganda's president, but Kenya's president and Somalia's president.
Right.
And Somalia had a firm stance as well. Kenya was a little more, trying to be a little passive about the Western, but they still did stand on the principle that we do not want this. We don't want this. And I wanted to acknowledge those presidents because they did. And I'm looking at, you can go online and you can see some of their parliamentary discussion concerning it. This very subject we're talking about. And how you'll really see when you listen to their parliamentary discussion concerning the matter, how they really feel about America now. And this is one thing I always like to point out. America, I fought for this country. We protect this country, not only with our military, but with our public services like the police, fire department, and all those services that produce a public service, right? Mm-hmm. I was very proud though of Ghana and those other nations by saying no, and not only saying no, but holding their position, right?
Yeah,
and that's what I guess that's what I'm getting to, holding their position, because it seems like here with our government, we have people who say they'll tell you they are against certain agendas, right? And but when it comes to voting time, they vote opposite, meaning that if I don't support an agenda, I'm not going to just vote party. I'm not going to vote my party that supports that agenda that I'm against. You see what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And that's one of the things that I really do have to applaud those nations for doing. I personally feel that actually it's almost disgusting to me that we would be, as a superpower, right, being America, that we would have enough gall to tell another nation how they should live socially, right? How they should live socially concerning sexuality, because that's what it's all down to. Now, they have their own way of doing things. They have their own sciences. And one of the things they were continually going back to is that we have scientifically proven, right, that this is not a genetical condition.
Yeah.
So their particular scientists have already, in their country, have already said, okay, this is not like the Western world or European society trying to take the lead on that issue. It's not exactly what they're saying.
Right.
Evidence is not there. And if the evidence was ever there, it should be, you know, one thing about real true evidence is that it can be recreated, so to speak. It can be recreated. And if you're in the astrophysics, you know who Neil deGrasse Tyson is, right?
Oh yeah.
One of my favorites, man. And that's one thing he always does. One thing, I watch him a lot. And you go check him out on Sky Talk. It's a Star Talk. But the brother really breaks things down from a astrophysics position, meaning that he questions everything and makes sure that the sensors that are being used to judge whatever and call it a truth, that those sensors that are being used aren't being manipulated one way or another. So what I'm saying is that if you have an agenda and you say, okay, let's say we want to push a same-sex agenda. Let's say that hypothetically.
Okay.
And you don't have, and you try to come up with evidence, not empirical evidence, which is different than evidence. Empirical evidence is different. But you try to come up with evidence to support your agenda. That's exactly what took place. That's what took place in America, at least. They came up with certain things to back that particular agenda, and they called it truth. Well, here's other nations, instead of just saying, okay, we're taking America's word. They've done all the research. They've done everything. We trust them enough just to follow the concept they've come up with.
Yeah.
That would be faulty. That would be a fault. And this is what I mean by I have to applaud those nations, the leaders of those nations, because they stood like they are really standing so far presidential.
Mm-hmm.
And we kind of talked about, imagine if the president of the United States,
okay,
right? Let's say Barack Obama. Right? You know, I was listen. Let me keep it real, because I keep it real. I like the idea of Barack Obama. I did love the idea here in America, knowing what we've been through with slavery and what we go through with discrimination and prejudices. It's wonderful to see a black president for us, right? When he became president, man, we became enthralled. We were happy, not necessarily taking the time to really check out the censors, like I'm saying, like Ross Tyson talks about. Okay, why do we think he's so good? Is it just because he's black? And for the majority of us, yes, I'm one. I'm a victim of it. So yeah, I want to see us as black people, you know, be able to achieve these things that were denied to us. The truth of it is that, you know, President Obama, and I love the man, I love the understanding of it, of him, his family, beautiful individual, but he was on the wrong side of history concerning same-sex marriage. And I believe he had an opportunity there to stand just like these African nations are standing against something that is really strong in this particular country, in the United States, where he could have taken the lead on it. Not that you're doing anything wrong to the people, but you didn't take a stand. You just caved in. That's what it's saying, you know. You just caved on into to the understanding of well, not even really an understanding. He just caved on into to an agenda, when you could have said, just like if he would have stood like these African nations.
Right.
Imagine that. His legacy as a president would have been more about that than about what they call Obamacare, which as soon as he got out of office, they tried to tear down, or getting the troops out of Iraq or anything like that. None of those issues are stronger than the LGBTQ community and the issues surrounding them right now. And you gotta say that if anyone's gonna commend him, to be honest, it would be the LGBTQ community. What do you think about that?
What you said right there at the end was 100% correct. Is if anybody were to applaud him for anything that he did while he was in office, was that, because that was the main agenda that he pushed.
Yes.
I think that was part of his plan and part of the play. And I think that that's what they used, and he might have agreed to be used, but they used him for that. They used him as the catalyst to get that going, because that was his main agenda. He didn't do anything for anybody else in any field, in any way, or work policies for anything for anybody, except for that. That was his main agenda. He was, because remember, I think people had said, or he might have said it himself, is that he would be known as the first, what was it? Open president, or some term that they used for him, open president, or, representative of the alternative lifestyle community, or, representative of the LGBTQ trans community. I forgot. They gave him some sort of title for being the representative of that, like the first president to ever represent that.
Yeah.
And that has become his legacy, is doing that. And it doesn't look good, because as we have with this Uganda situation, they don't have respect for him, nor do they have respect for Joe Biden.
Right.
Nor do they probably have respect for Kamala Harris as well. I would venture to say that. They had respect for Donald Trump, and they said it, that he didn't mess with things like this.
Yeah.
He wasn't trying to push us in directions in our country. But they said, but this President Joe Biden seems to think that he can push us, and if you think about it, make a play on us, a threatened play, to take away this and take away that and steal French fries and everything else in between from us, because we don't want to support his idea. But who is he, again, to come to their country and tell them that you got to do this? It's not child trafficking, right? It's not drug issue, right? It's not war coming on the front step, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not anything like that. It's not breaking foreign policy, right?
Right.
So what do they have to discuss? Because those four things are usually when you get into stuff with other countries and things of that, nature.
Right.
Not anything like this. Not anything close like this. As far as I'm concerned, in summary, I would say it's none of their business to go over there and do that. It's none of their business. And people are like, oh, they're going to kill homosexuals. I doubt it. They're not going to kill them, but they're not going to stand for them running their country. That's really what they're saying. They're not going to stand for them running their country. They may have said things to, I wouldn't say an extreme, but to just point things out to let people know, hey, you will not be coming here doing this, because they have to put things stern, because if they play with it, people are going to find ways to play with it, right?
Yes.
So they have to let people know, if you're here, you will not be doing this.
Yes.
You will not be doing this.
And they
will not accept it.
Yeah, they have strong laws in place. But like you said, statistically, once I always say, you always have to perform the litmus test. Statistically, they haven't killed a lot of homosexuals.
Yeah. I don't think they've killed any.
So however it exists, and they're saying it's not like it doesn't exist in those countries, but they're more like what happens in their home, that's on them. But what we will not do, we will not follow America and Europe and those other states who support it. We will not allow it to infiltrate our school systems.
Yes.
We will not allow it to infiltrate our social structure, like television and entertainment, to where it's all over the place. And they also, I think the Kenyan president, one of the parliamentary members, was making a point that how some of those people have gone after children and how they do a recruiting. And in America, we can't say certain things because people get real, uptight about it. But now we're talking about another country concerning their situation with homosexuality and what they know as truth.
Yes.
Right. And not innuendo. And what they stand on as truth and not for political gain or for political agenda. So, these people have done their own studies in their own country and have come up with their own idea concerning the situation, right? How dare us? How dare us?
Yeah.
Come with this, this understanding that we've adopted, because it wasn't even our understanding in America first.
Right.
Understanding we adopted to make this particular activity, or to allow it to infiltrate every area of the Western culture. And any that accepts it, right? Whether you are for it or against it, it simply is forced and pressed upon you. And they wrap it up in the package of human rights. See, this is, I've even seen, people call animal rights, they confuse that with human rights.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
Oh, something happening to an animal inhumane. What do you mean? What do you mean? Do you feed your dog with a fork and a spoon? Does he drink out of a cup?
Yeah.
Let's honest. That's not a human. There's human rights and then there's animal rights. There's a difference, but people merge those two together.
Yes, they did, because people are more fast to adopt a dog and talk about the treatment of a starving dog on the street than they will a starving kid.
Yes, that's my point.
Or a starving human being, right? They'll be quicker to do that than they would for a human being. Yeah. And that's the truth. That's been the truth.
And we just have to tell the truth here. Now, you know, we don't just go along. You just don't go along with an agenda.
Yes.
No, you do not go along with an agenda. And one thing is, a guy, I met this brother, he has a clothing line.
Mm-hmm.
Masculinity is what he represents. I met the brother on Twitter, man, and I ordered me some of the masculinity shirts. And he's pushing not falling for agendas. Don't fall for the agendas that will corrupt masculinity. Masculinity.
Absolutely.
So, but back to the subject we're talking about here. And the name of that brother clothing company is Masculine Clothing, Masculinity Clothing. And one shirt getting, I'll be wearing mine, Drew. And you need to get one too, brother.
Okay. I got you. Okay.
Back to the response to the leaders, to some of the leaders in Africa concerning Joe Biden, right? And also concerning how when Donald Trump was president, how he didn't meddle in business that way, in that personal business, kind of left that alone. How does that make the current president, Joe Biden, how does that make his stance look with these African nations, the leaders of these African nations? How do you think it makes the stance look? Because he represents America. Now, it's sad, but even though what a lot of people don't understand is not who do not live in America is that we rarely agree on anything. We rarely agree on anything collectively. So I think they're looking at America now with Joe Biden's position and Kamala coming over there.
Well, other countries are looking at us as weak. They look at us as trying to shove our weight around. They look at us as trying to colonialize, realistically, because that's what you do when you take over people's rules and tell them you can't do this. They're representing the United States in the worst light probably that it's ever been seen as. Right now.
Yes.
That's what's going on, and that's how the world is looking at us. We have no backbone. they probably watch the news and how we do things so they could study us a little bit more and see how ridiculous we are.
Right.
You know?
Right.
It's like, I had told you, a certain special someone to me had told me that when the Afghanistan, the situation with that, when Trump was out of office, they were just waiting for him to leave. And once Biden was in, abandoned base, Taliban take over.
Yeah.
They were waiting. They were waiting. They would not do it when Donald Trump was in office, but they would do it when Biden was in office. And that's what's happened is worldwide, these situations that we have guarded and taken care of, as soon as Biden got in office, they were overtaken. The schools where a lot of the women in Afghanistan were going to get to learn to read, to educate, different things, I guess, further education as well. We guarded those areas.
Right.
We took all those people out and, let the Taliban run through there. And I'm sure it did not end well or start well.
Right.
So people got killed. Come on, let's get down to it. They got killed.
Yes.
That's what happened. So we have allowed people to be murdered. All these Starbucks hipster kids, trans kids with the cups in their cell phones, and just the world in the US today, did they really care that people were just getting slaughtered in Afghanistan?
Right.
Did they care that people lost their lives?
Right.
For nonsense that we should have handled? No, they don't care. Because all they care about is corrupting children and having these new rules and these